months of the lockdown. Item 1, apologies and to note any substitutes. Donna?
None received, Chairman.
In which case, are you able to confirm, Donna, that the people that are attending are those that are on the list to be attending this evening, i.e. we've got no substitutes?
There are no substitutes, Chairman. We have 2 councillors that requested to sit in on the meeting, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item 2, to note any declarations of interest arising from items on the agenda.
Not received, Chairman.
Item 3, to receive any questions from members of the public pursuant to Council Procedure Rule number 10.
None received, Chairman.
Item 4, to receive any questions by members of the Council pursuant to Council Procedure Rule number 11.
None received, Chairman.
Item 5, reports of overview and scrutiny committee.
None received, Chairman.
We move on to the substantive part of the meeting now. Item 6, which will be presented by Fiona. Over to you, Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. So I'm here to present the progress on the corporate plan, and in addition to give you an update on the risk register. So what you'll see is various reports. So you'll have an overview of the performance dashboard in Appendix A. You'll have a detailed description of each performance and the mitigating actions to improve performance in Appendix B. You'll have risk registers in Appendix C, D and E. So what I'll do is I'll just start with the performance. So of the 35 measures that we have in our corporate plan, pleased to say that we're doing really well. So overall, 77% of the key aims or key measures within the corporate plan are on track, which is good news. 90% are on track under our environment, 65% are on track under our people, and 88% are on track under our future. So for this committee is responsible for 16 measures, and what I'll do is I'll just give you an overview, an update on those measures. So there are 8 measures that are on track, that are in the green for this quarter. I won't read them out because you've got them in your report. There is 1 measure that's in progress, which is around household waste collected. We've got 3 proxy measures, and just to give you a recap, the proxy measures are those measures where we currently don't collect the data. So there is no baseline data at the moment, so we're starting more or less from scratch. Or there are service areas that are deemed important that we want to collect, and so we're just collecting that data for information. And we've got 3 of those, as you'll see in the report. Unfortunately, there are 3 measures that are not on track, that are in the red for this quarter. And what I'll do is I'll just briefly go through those measures and I'll explain the issues briefly and also the actions that are put in place. So the first one you'll notice is the number of apprenticeships. So COVID has clearly had an impact on almost everything, well, everything. And in particular, it has had an impact on the hiring of apprentices, particularly young modern apprentices. And as you know, colleges have been closed, our offices are closed, and that has had an impact on hiring apprentices. We do have a new post, as you're aware, we've got an L&D officer that sits within my service. She has a lot of experience in apprenticeships, and I've also done quite a bit of work in a previous life on apprenticeships as well. So together we hope that we'll be able to move it forward. We will move it forward. One of the things that we'll be looking at is how we can, when we recruit to posts, identify opportunities to have apprenticeships. And also, as you know, apprenticeships are not just for for young people. Apprenticeships are for all ages and for existing staff. So we'll be looking at opportunities where we can use apprenticeships and qualifications for existing posts as well. The government is planning a lot of is planning reform on the current arrangements. The current arrangements are quite challenging, and so there is intention to streamline I suppose the framework to encourage a better take up of the scheme and to simplify the process. Also, as you know, I'm doing quite a lot of work around equality, diversity and inclusion, and it's certainly one of the key themes that has been identified, or one of the key actions that has been identified and to incorporate into our equality strategy. So I've no doubt that apprenticeships will be a key feature, as it's one of the protected characteristics around age. So that's apprenticeships. I'll go on to talk about the next one, which is the average number of days lost due to sickness. Unfortunately, very disappointing, levels of sickness absence has started to increase again. At the end of July, looked at the figures, not good, not going in the right direction at all. And in comparison to this time last year, it's increased around it's about 35% higher than the previous year. So it's not good. There are many factors contributing to this. It is quite complex, and there isn't one answer that to fix this issue. The main cause cited has been around stress, and often this is quite often an issue, not just for us but for other organisations as well. So a discussion is being held with me and the leadership team, and I've presented a paper to them which consists of a range of options, and the range of options are based on some best practice. They're also based on things that have been, I'd call them lessons learned, which is things that have been put in place that hasn't gone quite right. And we want to make sure that we don't kind of fall foul of that and, adopt something that works. So I am going to be meeting with the leadership team, and nothing's off the table. And we will be obviously looking at what we can do to address it. And a paper then will be presented to the committee with recommendations on how to address this issue. And then the final one that's in the red is increase the number of jobs in South Derbyshire. Again, clearly a huge impact, or the result. This has been the result of COVID. And we're not alone in this. This is obviously a national issue. The development of the economic strategy also has had an impact on this, because this is a strategy which would have been developed to certainly address some of the issues. Because this is obviously a partnership approach, unfortunately, this hasn't been as progressed as quickly as we wanted it to. But it is in progress. Also, the team that have been dealing with this, clearly their focus has been around COVID. So in particular, the distribution of the grants to small businesses. But it is work in progress, and continuing obviously to look at working with partners, the public, private, voluntary and community sector organisations to develop the strategy. So I'm just going to go on now to talk about the risk register just very briefly. As I said, you can see the detail in Appendix C, D and E. In Appendix C, the Chief Executive Risk Register, there's no changes during Q1. Appendix D, there's no changes, no significant changes, just one new one, added to the Corporate Services Risk Register. Before I talk about that, I'll just mention Risk 1, the universal credit. There's just been some actions updated due to COVID, but no change to the rating. Risk 2, there's been some actions updated, but again, no changes to the rating. And in the Corporate Services Risk Register, there's a new one added, which is Risk 5, around safety of public buildings. And this is about really about condition surveys that are being undertaken within the planned maintenance programme. So that has been added, and also incorporating the fact that we are including the COVID-19 risk assessments as part of that work as well. Appendix C, the strategic risk register. There's been no significant changes to that. But just to mention that one of the actions that has just been updated is around strengthening the security in handling card payments by telephone and safeguarding data. So there's just an update there, but no change to the rating. So Chair, I'm looking really for the committee to support and approve the progress made against Q1, against the corporate plan and the risk register, and also happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Any questions, please, to Fiona?
Yes, thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Councillor McPherson. Yeah, thanks for that, Fiona. It's really useful to have the risk registers and make sure we're going in line as we are. I take it when you bring back the proposal or suggestions to the management team about the staffing and the absenteeism, etc. You'll have run that by unions first, I take it, and and it'll be done, as you say, with best practice. Yeah, lovely to see this report. Great that we keep on top of all the things that we're doing well and the things that are slipping. So yeah, with that, I'm happy to propose the report. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you, Councillor.
Any further comments, please?
We have Councillor Dr. Pearson as.
That's what I can't understand at the moment, Donna. I can't get the list of people that are asking questions. Oh, sorry, it's just come up. It's just come up. It's turned up. Yes, okay. Councillor Councillor Dr. Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. And just to reiterate, thanks to Fiona for the comprehensive report. It's really appreciated and informative. I'll just take you back to the performance dashboard, and particularly the issue about staff absence. I think 35% increase in absence over this time next year, as you rightly identify, is pretty shocking, really, and especially as you say that stress is a high factor here, and it'd be very interesting to find out whether it's workplace stress in particular, because I think as an employer, I'm sure you'll be aware of our responsibilities in that regard. So it is very good to know that you are going to be reporting to the senior management team and then to FNM. I'm just wondering if you could give us an indication of the timescale for reporting back to this committee.
Well, I've got a meeting with the leadership team. I think it's next week. So it is. I can honestly say it's a high priority. I'm sure Frank will probably want to step in, but it is of a high priority because it's an issue, and it's something that we really need to tackle. So I can't give you a definite date, but I will say it's high on the leadership team's agenda. And as soon as we get to a place where we've got some recommendations, some options, and also we need to consult with trade unions as mentioned, and obviously get some, hopefully come to some sort of agreement. Yeah. Then I'll obviously
just a minute.
Let me help you.
Lisa, Frank. Frank. I noticed
yes.
Lisa's next to question, but Fiona's raised a point where you might be responding, so please respond now.
Thank you. It would be helpful if I came in at this point just to help out. We already have met with the unions, as you'd expect, in our normal joint negotiating group last week. I chair that group. I made my concerns known to the unions that the trigger points that we've had for people returning to work, the reasons why people might not be going to work, leave a great pressure on those people who are at work. And so we owe it to the people here that are keeping the ship afloat, as it were, to take things to the next level, whatever that level might be. And the helpful nature of Fiona's work is to supply us with HR methods of increasing people's interaction with us when they're ill, trying to find out the root problem of if it is indeed stress, rather than other long-term, more recognizable illnesses. Then we need to get down and dirty with it, with the unions, to say, look, supporting people off ill is very, very important. Supporting the people in work who are carrying the burden is also important. And if I have to revise measures that, shall we say, encourage people to consider the effects of not being at work a little more carefully, then I have to do that. hand in hand with additional support that we might give to people suffering stress, the causes of stress, COVID-19 issues, another 6 months of perhaps remote working. I've been working with one of our officers, Sean Woodcock, about reaching out to people on a one-to-one basis if necessary. I'm head of paid service in terms of their home working, their well-being, their current stress situations, so that they can feel part of an organisation. You can imagine in this remote situation, you're suffering from it now, members. You're feeling slightly on the edge of the organisation. My staff feel no differently about that. We talk to them just in the same way we're struggling to talk to some of you. So we are redoubling our efforts to make them feel part of a living, breathing organisation that cares about them, that also provides for their needs remotely. You've seen my latest email to all staff, which I sent to you the day after, saying if you need a chair to support your back, an office chair in your domestic situation, come and get it. If we can upgrade your equipment in some way so that you're not staring at a small screen and that your eye level contact is better, we will do it. We're trying every method possible. And I don't want to use cliches like carrot and stick. It's more about care and conduct. And the next report I have from Fiona, which is coming next Wednesday to leadership team, will fully engage us for probably the whole of the meeting to come back to this committee, the F&M committee who manage the staff here with me, to give you the best way forward. And it will be different than the existing procedures that we have now. I've told all the unions that, all of them, the manual unions, Unison, all of them, that we all need to work together to step up to bring this figure down. It's unacceptable in this organisation or any organisation to carry that percentage of absenteeism. So Fiona, that's where we are. We're all on the same page with it, Peter, and we will be coming back, Chair, to the next committee, if I can make it that quickly, so that I can go to a special meeting of the JNG, the union meeting, to put on the table for consultation what we hope will be not a solution, but certainly a roadway to better absence figures coming to the next committee.
Thank you very much indeed, Frank. Do you wish to comment any further, Fiona?
No.
Thank you. In which case, I move to Lisa Brown, Councillor Brown. Sorry, who was the next one?
Thank you very much, Chairman. It was about this stress and the absenteeism. It is highly significant, isn't it? And I was just wondering if there was, apart from the fact that people are struggling with the remote situation and COVID, and the fact that we get these daily reports and it doesn't seem to be getting a lot better at the moment, quite the opposite, it's going in the wrong direction. Are there any other common denominators? And when you do your investigations, Fiona, if you could just dig down deep and see if there is any sort of common denominator, any particular department that's hit with it, or at sea, and then perhaps that would help address that. But I'm happy to second the proposal and move the report forward, but have significant concerns about that and would be grateful for a report back as soon as possible. Thank you.
Chair, is it possible if I can just respond to Councillor Brown?
Of course it is, yes.
Councillor Brown, what I would say, it is so complex. There are so many things and so many variables and so many barriers that we're faced with. So if I give you an example, a person will go to their GP, and I'm not saying at all it's the GP's fault, but they may go to their GP and they will write them more or less an open ticket to be off. And the longer a person is off sick, the more difficult it becomes to get them back to work. And they then will become stuck in a place, really stuck. And sometimes they're just probably at home, unraveling, probably getting worse mentally. And that's just an example of the complexity and the challenges that we're up against. And I'm not saying that's the issue, because it really isn't, but it just shows the challenges that we're up against. And the approaches is to try and get people back to work as quickly and as safely as we can. And or if they are really unable to come back, then obviously we have to explore some options, and that's quite difficult. And for me, I've done that because I've got a HR background, and I'm used to that, and I'm used to having those conversations, and quite difficult ones. But I would say it's very, very complex, and that's why we do need to look at, for me, multiple solutions to address it. Some may be a stick, some may be a carrot, and then we have to then review it to see whether it also works. And I think the last time we did this was in March, so you know it's time for last March. It's time for a review. So I would say it's not a one issue. There are multiple. Some of it are some barriers that are put in the way as well to make it even more challenging. So I don't know whether that answers your question, Councillor Brown.
Well, that's very helpful, Fiona. Clearly, you've got it is a challenge, and it's complex, isn't it? So we're in good hands, but the report coming back, we'd be very grateful to see. I'm sure I speak on behalf of most members of this committee, but I'm happy to move your report and get the process started. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see, Kevin, you've got your hand up. Councillor Richards.
Thank you, Chair. We have to remember that individuals do have the right to self-certificate for the first week, and that can be a considerable knock-on effect throughout full employment. And the other thing is that we need to try and find out what are the triggers that actually cause people to have stress or concerns, and then that can probably resolve some of the problems. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have a proposer in Councillor Macpherson, a seconder in Councillor Brown. However, before we move to the vote, which form of voting are we going to be using tonight, Donna? And I also notice that Councillor Southard is down as a guest, where he is actually a member of this committee, so he is entitled to vote. Can you answer both questions, please, Donna?
Yes, Chairman. We will use the voting form. I've spoken to Councillor Southard about his connection, and he is happy to type into the chat bar for or verbally say how he wishes to vote. And I think Councillor Richards will also verbally say how he wishes to vote. I think he has a problem with his chat bar.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you,
so
Chairman.
We're going to vote. You're going to put it on the screen, and we vote either for, against, or abstain.
That is correct, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed.
I can send it now.
We'll now move to the vote.
Should be in the chat bar now, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed.
Councillor Richards.
For.
Thank you. Have you managed to vote, Councillor Southard?
I've got the chat bar working, and I've put 4 in the box.
Brilliant. It's come through. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can we have the result of the vote, please, Donna?
12 responses. Motion carried, Chairman.
Thank you much indeed.
Thank you, Chairman.
We move to item 7, which will be presented by the Kevin Stackhouse, Joint Consultative Committee Report, Terms of Reference. Kevin.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everybody. Can I just start by saying apologies to Councillor Richards and any other members who are having trouble with their IT. I'll also be taking it up with IT in the morning as well. So going on to this report, Chairman. Yeah, you may think it's a bit strange that there's a terms of reference being brought at this particular time for this particular subcommittee. There is nothing sinister in it. As you probably know, the JCC meets very, very rarely, and has done over many years. It's only met rarely. The last time it met was just over a year ago, and I think after the meeting, somebody just innocently asked, is there any terms of reference for this committee? And when it was investigated, there certainly wasn't an up-to-date version of a terms of reference. So it's good practice to have a terms of reference in the Constitution. That's why they've been developed. it makes sure that we remain transparent, and if nothing else, at least for the trade unions and the employee representatives who sit on that committee, so they can quite clearly see what the remit is and what their role is within that particular committee. So nothing sinister around it. I think that the terms of reference are pretty straightforward. They reflect what the committee is set up to do, and it is a subcommittee. It can't make recommendations. Decisions. It can only make recommendations back up to the parent committee, which is F&M Chairman.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Any questions to Kevin Stackhouse? In which case, I'll propose the acceptance of the terms of reference of the consultative committee.
Second that, Chairman Southard.
Thank you very much indeed. Any further questions? In which case, Donna, can we move to the vote, please? Proposed by myself and seconded by Councillor Southern.
Yes, Chairman, should be coming up into the chat bar now. Just waiting for all the responses to come through.
Councillor Richards, 4.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. There is a problem with Councillor Southard's. An error has occurred. So could you verbally say how you wish to vote, Councillor Southard?
4, Donna.
Thank you. Has everybody voted? Motion carried, 11 responses, Chairman.
Thank you much indeed. We move to item 8, the evaluation of bids for new capital projects, presented by Kevin Stackhouse.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is the report back from the scoring panel of the bids that were submitted. So I will just summarise what the recommendations are of the panel, really for the benefit of the members that didn't take part directly in that panel on that particular day. As the report summarises, there were 20 bids that were submitted for scoring for capital funding, and out of the 20, 14 were actually scored on the day. 6 were dropped for various reasons. 2, in effect, were accepted, and they are being funded from another reserve that we hold at the moment. And the beauty of going through this process, it will help to unlock some other funds, Section 106 and other specific reserves that the council currently holds to actually help and fund some of these projects as well. So 14 were scored. The two that were accepted are, as it's detailed in the report, the 2 schemes in Swadlincote Town Centre, a redevelopment to prepare the land that's known as Bretby Villa Bank House, to prepare it for redevelopment, and in the short term to provide hopefully some additional car parking for the town centre. And the second scheme is to actually purchase the business unit that the council sold many years ago to the Chambers of Commerce, to actually take that building back, in fact at a lesser cost than it actually sold it for, and to get that back into council ownership. And it will have some options around how it can use that to help small businesses coming out of COVID-19, for example, or even let it for commercial purposes. So that will be determined at a future date. Appendix 3, I suppose, is the main summary of the bids that the panel have put forward for approval. They're all fundable. I just point out with a couple of the schemes, for example, the one around Melbourne Assembly Rooms, where there are a couple of technicalities just that we need to be careful of before we set off on any work there, around the VAT position, and also to make sure how the works are packaged to make sure it all counts as capital expenditure. And the other one I would just point out as well, and this is in the report, is the capital project associated with the urban park in Swadlincote. All of the Section 106 money has not yet been secured, so we will need to keep that under review before we actually start that project in the future. Appendix 3 shows that the cost of the bids that are being recommended by the panel for approval, the total 2.3 million. That's the amount that is to come from the capital receipts reserve. You'll see that there's a couple of schemes right down at the bottom of the 14 bids that were scored that scored quite low in comparison to the other bids, but the panel feel that they're still worthy of going forward. This is the proposal for a Paradise Garden in Swadlincote, and also to extend the cemetery at Marston on Dove to create extra burial space in the northwest of the district. In the absence of any other bids, and because they could be afforded, the panel are proposing that they are also accepted as part of the package of works. Finally, Chairman, just to go over the funding, the report, I think it's in around about paragraph 3.10, sets out the total available funds in the capital receipts reserve, and it's projected to be at 3.1 million. Projected because, as the report highlights, we're still awaiting 2 or 3 capital receipts to come in, and they should be coming in over the next, anywhere between the next month and 6 to 7 months. They are contractual payments, but they are not fully guaranteed. They won't be guaranteed until they're actually in the bank. So we just need to keep that under review. But even if we just get the payments that are due by April 21, there would be enough in the bank to progress all the schemes that are being proposed. The final point I'd like to make, Chairman, on the funding is around the Chestnut Avenue funding and the balance of the overage payment, this bonus that the council had from the development at Chestnut Avenue and the building of the Midway Community Centre. That was an original sum of £750,000. It's always been reported, although in the general receipts pot, it's always been earmarked separately. £250,000 of it has already been approved by this committee some time ago to extend the community centre and to improve the football pitches up at Chestnut Avenue. And I understand that work now is quite close on both those projects to actually start. Procurement, as there's been a procurement process that's gone through. So hopefully that money will be spent in the short term now. But I think this is the right time now, Chairman, for the committee to make that decision that the remainder of that sum, the about £480,000, actually is put into the general capital receipts pot and then is used to fund the rest of these schemes, including actually schemes that are next door to Midway, and hopefully the Midway residents would benefit from that. But we have always had a policy here that capital receipts that are generated anyway are for the benefit of the whole of South Derbyshire, and not necessarily for where they may have been generated in a particular part of the district. I think there are 5 or 6 recommendations, Chairman, altogether, and hopefully what I've just said summarises those recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I think it's an excellent report, and I think we're very fortunate to be in a position from previously well-managed finances that we can at this time invest in some capital projects. Has there any questions or comments, please? I noticed that Councillor Dr. Pearson.
It was Councillor Ford first, I think. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Okay, Councillor Ford first. Yes, we're going alphabetical order. Councillor Ford.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, endorse your comments on the report. I think members can see that we spent a very, very enjoyable day going through all the schemes, and with Kevin's occasional interjection to keep us on the straight and narrow. It was a hard day, but it was a very enjoyable day, and we've managed to secure an awful lot of funding for an awful lot of schemes that go right the way across the district. And I'm obviously happy to move the report, but certainly before I do that, I'll give all my thanks to everybody who was involved in putting the schemes together, working everything through, and then now we'll hopefully after tonight we'll be involved in getting the work done and getting the schemes up and running. So we're happy to move the report, Chair, and thank you to everybody involved, both on the day and during the build-up of the schemes.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Dr. Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, to reiterate what Councillor Ford has said, I found it was an extremely rigorous process that we went through, and I was very satisfied at the end of it that we really scrutinised all the proposals. So thank you to the fellow panel members, but also thank you to the members of the council for bringing the projects forward. I do have one question, one clarification in regards to the Midway Community Centre and the overage there. Obviously Kevin said that £250,000 have been put aside for the extension and for works to the football pitches. I do want to have absolute clarification, if I may, that the issues in regards to the football pitches in particular are to be addressed, because I believe that the issues are still ongoing, and I think that one school of thought could be that actually we need to defer the transfer of the overage until that time the actual issue has been resolved. But I just welcome comment either from Kevin or maybe Frank McCardle in regards to that issue in specific, please. So the £250 that's been put aside for the Midway Community Centre, will it both guarantee the extension but also the issues in regards to the football pitches? I'll ask Frank to comment. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly, it is agreed that the completion of that work is vital to the what will be, when that's done, an excellent scheme of sweating that asset. I think we've been prudent with the amount that is earmarked for that work. Some of it is actually in progress as we speak. The slit drainage on the pitch is actually visible now, and the extension to the building for storage purposes, etc., is well documented, and as Kevin has said, has gone through a procurement process. So I think there's some safety with possibly a sum placed within that reserve that will allow for any variances. I understand the councillor's concern. It's like the icing on the cake. The cake isn't a cake until the icing is on it, and this is that icing. So I think I'm content with it, if I'm able to say that to members. I think Kevin is also, from a financial perspective. So whilst I note what Dr. Pearson is saying, and I understand why he's saying it, I think we're confident we can get this over the line with what we've reserved, and I think you're therefore free, if you are wishing to do so, to move the monies into the general fund, as Kevin has said, in accordance with our usual policies, Chairman.
Councillor Pearson, are you satisfied with the answer from the Chief Executive, and also the nodded approval of the Finance Director?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, Chair, it is reassuring to have that, I wouldn't say necessarily a guarantee, but a commitment by the Chief Executive and Chief Financial Officer that they understand that the sum set aside should be appropriate. I'm sure that if the works aren't completed, I'm sure that they would move heaven and earth to make sure that they are and finances are available to them. I know myself, local members, Councillor Anglis and Councillor Dunn, will be pressurising them accordingly. And just in regards to the overage, I think, absolutely agree what Kevin Stackhouse was saying, that, absolutely agree with the principle that any overage capital receipts that we generate should be, for the benefit of the whole of the district, not just the area that it's created. But obviously, in this instance, it is very important that the site that's developed was actually developed to completion. So thank you for that, and thank you for those assurances.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to echo the previous two comments, really. Excellent report tonight, Kevin, well presented and well facilitated on the day that the working group sat. It was a really enjoyable day's work to actually spend some money, and it's wonderful that this capital unlocks those earmarked reserves that have sat there. And in these most difficult of economic times and uncertainty, it's a real pleasure to think that we'll play our part in putting some money back into the local economy over the coming months and years. So an excellent report. I believe Councillor Richards is wanting to speak afterwards, and perhaps as a sign of how well both sides of the House worked on this. I won't second the report yet. I'll leave that for him to do. So well done, guys, and just really, really good news story here that we've got, and something to be proud of in South Derbyshire. Thank you.
Thank you much indeed. Councillor Richards, I notice your hand keeps going up and down. Do you wish to speak? Yeah, it's a bit like a fiddler's elbow at the moment, Chair, with the system. What it is, yes, I like to extend my thanks to the officers that brought together all those bids. It was an enjoyable day, but what was more enjoyable was the fact that we had sufficient funds to cover them. And so that's what a lot of authorities are not in that fortunate position that we are. I'm very pleased to hear
what the chief exec and the finance officer said about the Chestnut Avenue, because I can well remember standing on the ground with the late Councillor Mrs. Farrington, the late Bill Dunn, and of course John Wilkins, when we made the promise to the people of Midway that there was going to have a centre of excellence and a football pitch that would come up to FA standards. Unfortunately, the centre was only built to SASH, or should we say standard approach to sports halls, and there was no storage facility. I'm assured now, and it's been said and it's recorded, that there's £250,000 that will bring the pitch up to a good standard and have the storage. Having walked it today, there's still a lot of work to be done on that ground. And so with that and the assurance that I've got from the chief exec and the finance officer, I have no problems in seconding, thank you very much, Councillor Fitzpatrick, the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Richards. Councillor Fitzpatrick, Councillor Richards would like to second it. I'm sure you would not disagree with that.
Not at all.
We have a proposer in the leader in Councillor Ford, and we have a seconder in the leader of the opposition in Councillor Richards. We'll now move to the vote. Donna, can you please organise it, please?
It should be coming up in the chat bar now, Chairman.
Thank you.
Southard for Donna.
Thank you.
Richards for Donna.
Thank you. 12 responses, Chairman. Motion carried.
Oh, we've got total responses. That's fine. Item 9, committee work programme.
Move that, Chair.
Was that Gordon?
It was, yes.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Second it, Chair. Richards.
Proposed by Councillor Ryan, seconded by Councillor Richards. Anyone else wish to speak?
Only to thank the officers.
In which case we move to the vote. Donna?
Yes, if you just bear with me a moment, it takes me a while just to prepare the form, and you speak quicker sometimes than I can get the form prepared. It should be coming in the chat bar now.
Thank you.
For Donna.
Thank you, Councillor Southard.
Richards for Donna.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Twelve responses, Chairman. Motion carried.
So there's one missing again, it seems to be.
No, it's 12, Chairman. There's 12 members in the.
I thought there were 13 on the committee. Because it says 10. So adding Kevin and Councillor Richards and Councillor Southard, that only gets to 12. I thought there were 13. Correct. It appears to be that Councillor Taylor is not present.
He was present, Chairman.
Okay.
I am present, Chair, and I have voted.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is just another glitch because I've been noticing in the results. In item 6, we had 13 voted. Item 7, we had 12 voted. Item 9, we had 13, and we've now only got 12. So there's Chairman, another problem. Sorry.
Chairman, we've only got 12 attendees that are eligible to vote.
Who's missing then?
Nobody's missing, Chairman. There's 12 members on the committee. Okay,
I'll move on. Whilst I'm reading the speech on the exclusion of the press and public, perhaps you can make sure the room's clear, please, Donna. Item 10. That's in accordance with section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. The press and public been excluded from the remainder of the meeting, as it is likely in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings that would be disclosed exempt information as defined in paragraph Part 1 of the Schedule 12A of the Act indicated in the header to each report on the agenda. Can you please